Florida's housing market is in chaos, and now the governor himself is finally speaking out. Prices are out of control, families are being pushed out, and entire communities are on edge wondering what comes next. In this video, we'll break down exactly what the governor said, why it matters, and what it could mean for the future of Florida's housing crisis. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This channel brings you the most important housing news, real estate breakdowns, and market updates you won't find anywhere else. If you want the truth about what's really happening to housing in America and how it affects you, subscribing ensures you never miss a critical update. Florida's housing market is in free fall, and for the first time in months, the governor has finally broken his silence. From Miami to Tampa, from Orlando to Fort Myers, families are being priced out of neighborhoods they've lived in for generations. Homes that once sold for $200,000 are now climbing past $500,000. Rent hikes are crushing working families, and communities are struggling to keep up with skyrocketing costs. What was once a dream of affordable sunshine living in Florida is quickly turning into a nightmare. In today's video, we're going to break down exactly what the governor said, why he's speaking out now, and what it means for the future of Florida's housing market. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about numbers on a chart. This is about real people, families, retirees, young professionals, who are being forced to make impossible choices. Some are moving hours away from their jobs just to afford rent. Others are leaving the state altogether. And now, with the governor finally weighing in, many are asking, will his words bring solutions, or is it just too little too late? Before we dive deeper, I want to ask you to take one small step that will keep you informed and ahead of the curve. Subscribe to this channel. Here, we don't waste your time. We bring you the latest housing news, real estate breakdowns, and market insights that the mainstream rarely covers. If you want to know what's really happening in Florida and across America, subscribing ensures you'll never miss the updates that could directly affect your future, your finances, and your family security. The housing crisis is no longer a distant problem. It's here, it's real, and it's hitting Florida harder than almost anywhere else. The governor may have finally spoken, but the bigger question remains. Will action follow, or will families be left to struggle on their own? Let's get into the details and uncover what's really going on. When the governor finally addressed Florida's housing market, many expected bold solutions. Instead, what we got was a mix of concern, blame, and vague promises. He acknowledged a rapid rise in home prices and rents, admitting that thousands of Floridians are being priced out of the market. But instead of outlining immediate relief, much of his statement shifted the blame onto outside factors: population growth, rising interest rates, and investors buying up properties. There's some truth to this. Florida's population has exploded in recent years, with people from states like New York, California, and New Jersey flocking to the Sunshine State in search of lower taxes and warmer weather. That surge in demand has put enormous pressure on housing supply. Add in the fact that corporate investors and private equity firms are buying up single-family homes to turn them into rentals, and the competition for housing becomes nearly impossible for regular families to win. The governor promised to look into stronger protections for first-time homebuyers, but critics argue that his response lacked urgency. Local leaders in cities like Orlando and Tampa have been calling for more concrete measures, such as limits on corporate property ownership, increased funding for affordable housing projects, and protections against runaway rent hikes. So far, none of those proposals have made it into statewide policy. Even more troubling is the perception that the governor's remarks are more about political positioning than real solutions. With Florida being a national spotlight state, every word carries weight. For some residents, his speech sounded more like a campaign message than a plan of action. Meanwhile, families struggling to pay rent this month aren't asking for speeches. They're asking for solutions. At the heart of this issue is a simple but devastating truth. Florida does not have enough affordable housing to meet the needs of its residents. Without a massive increase in supply, through new constructions, zoning reform, and restrictions on speculative investment, the crisis is unlikely to ease anytime soon. The governor's words may have acknowledged the problem, but they've done little to reassure the millions of Floridians waiting for help. And that raises a question. Is Florida's housing crisis beyond political solutions, or can leaders step in before it's too late? Behind every headline about Florida's housing market, there are families living through a daily struggle that numbers can't fully capture. While politicians debate and investors speculate, ordinary people are the ones paying the price. And for many, that price is simply too high. Take renters, for example. In places like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando, rent has jumped by more than 30% in just the last few years. Families who were paying $1,200 a month for a modest apartment are now staring at bills of $1,800 or even $2,000. For a household earning $50,000 a year, that rent increase alone consumes nearly half their income, leaving little left over for food, gas, healthcare, or savings. This isn't just a housing issue, it's a survival issue. It's not only renters feeling the squeeze. First-time homebuyers are being locked out of the market entirely. Rising mortgage rates, combined with soaring home prices, mean a young family with decent credit and savings often still can't qualify for a loan. Even if they can, the monthly payments are so high that homeownership feels more like a trap than a dream. In cities like Fort Myers and Jacksonville, bidding wars are pushing ordinary buyers out as cash-rich investors swoop in to buy property sight unseen. Then there are retirees, many of whom moved to Florida for affordable living on a fixed income. Now, with property taxes climbing alongside home values and insurance rates soaring due to hurricane risks, even long-term residents are being forced to consider leaving the state. It's a cruel irony. The state known for attracting retirees is becoming unaffordable for the very people it was supposed to welcome. The human toll is staggering. Parents are working multiple jobs just to cover rent. Kids are being pulled out of schools as families are forced to relocate. Communities that once thrived are fracturing as neighbors leave in search of cheaper housing. And all the while, stress and uncertainty are taking a heavy emotional toll. This isn't a distant crisis. It's happening right now, every day, in neighborhoods across Florida. And if nothing changes, the dream of affordable living in the Sunshine State may vanish altogether. When most people think about buying a home in Florida, they picture families saving up for a down payment, retirees searching for a quiet neighborhood, or young professionals hoping to settle down. But in today's market, the biggest buyers aren't families at all. They're Wall Street. Over the last decade, private equity firms, hedge funds, and large corporate investors have turned Florida's housing market into a gold mine. Instead of buying a few houses here and there, they're purchasing entire neighborhoods, often paying cash and outbidding everyday people. The result? Regular families don't stand a chance. Here's how it works. These firms buy single-family homes, sometimes hundreds at a time, then convert them into rental properties. They raise rents aggressively, knowing demand is high and people have limited options. For them, it's a business model. For Floridians, it's a trap. A family that could own a home is now stuck renting indefinitely from a landlord that might not even live in the state. The numbers tell the story. In certain metro areas of Florida, institutional investors account for as much as 30% of recent home purchases. That means nearly 1 in 3 homes is going to a corporation, not a family. And because they often pay above asking price, they drive up property values across entire neighborhoods, leaving everyone else priced out. It doesn't stop there. Once these investors control enough homes, they effectively control the rental market too. With fewer independent landlords and fewer homes available for purchase, they have the power to set rents higher and higher. And unlike a local landlord who might work with tenants during tough times, these corporate owners are often faceless entities, quick to evict and slow to respond to maintenance issues. Critics argue that Florida's leaders have done little to rein in this trend. While some states are exploring policies to discourage bulk home buying by corporations, Florida remains wide open for business. For big investors, the Sunshine State is prime real estate. For families, it's becoming an impossible dream. The result is a vicious cycle. Corporations buy up homes, prices go up, families get shut out, and the rental market grows more predatory. It's no longer about community, it's about profit. And unless this trend is addressed, Florida's neighborhoods risk being hollowed out, replaced not by homeowners building lives, but by corporate landlords collecting checks. Florida's housing crisis isn't just a result of market forces. It's also about politics. While families across the state are being priced out of both buying and renting, many argue that Governor Ron DeSantis and state lawmakers have failed to implement meaningful policies to address the problem. Instead, critics say their decisions have made the situation worse. One of the biggest issues is affordability. For years, Florida had a trust fund called the Sadowski Fund, designed specifically to support affordable housing projects. But instead of using it as intended, state leaders have repeatedly raided it to plug budget gaps elsewhere. Billions of dollars meant to help families secure affordable homes never reached them. That lack of investment is now being felt on the ground, with entire communities struggling to find reasonably priced housing. At the same time, the state has passed legislation that many experts believe favors developers and corporate landlords over everyday people. For example, recent laws have made it harder for local governments to enact rent control, even in cities where rents have skyrocketed by 30% or more in just a few years. Local leaders who want to protect their residents' wallets find their hands tied by Tallahassee. Meanwhile, Governor DeSantis has emphasized deregulation and a free market approach, arguing that loosening rules for developers will eventually increase housing supply. Supporters say this encourages construction and creates jobs. But opponents point out that much of the new construction is luxury housing or short-term rentals catering to wealthy out-of-staters, not affordable homes for working-class Floridians. The governor has also signed laws that critics argue protect corporate landlords. One example is the state's restrictions on rent control measures, effectively blocking cities like Orlando or Miami from taking emergency steps to curb surging rental costs. For renters already spending half their income on housing, these policies feel like a betrayal. Ultimately, the clash comes down to priorities. While state leaders claim to be fostering growth and opportunity, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Families unable to buy homes, tenants crushed under rising rents, and corporations dominating the housing market. The political choices being made in Tallahassee are directly shaping who gets to live in Florida and who gets left behind. The housing crisis isn't just economic, it's political. And unless leaders shift focus toward protecting everyday families instead of catering to developers and investors, the dream of affordable living in Florida will slip further out of reach.